Do you know how much of your life you can waste worrying about what somebody else is going to think about you, what they're going to say, whether they're going to judge you, whether they'll think you're weak, stupid, depressing, crazy, or whatever? And if you're not careful, that shit starts making decisions for you. You don't say what you really think. You don't do what you really want to do. You don't tell the truth about something that you've lived through because you're already imagining what somebody else is going to think about it. And then eventually you learn something incredibly freeing. There are idiots everywhere. And some of them are going to judge you no matter what the hell you do. Matter of fact, let me talk about one. Got this comment from Todd on my last video. And he said, dude, you are depressing. Now, I probably would have thought the same thing years ago. You know, life has a funny way of humbling the hell out of you. Stick around, you might understand me someday, Todd. And I'm going to tell you something. When I wrote that response, I wasn't pissed off. I wasn't offended. I was laughing my ass off because I recognized that guy. I used to be him. And that's what made it so damn funny. Because years ago, somebody else's judgment would have mattered to me. Hell, I might have changed what I said because of it. Now I just pin that sumbitch in the comments. But here's the uncomfortable part. There was a time when I would have watched some 55-year-old man sitting on YouTube talking about rebuilding his life, peace, loneliness, losing things, starting over, and admitting that he doesn't know exactly where the hell he's going. And I probably would have thought, Jesus, dude, get your shit together. Because back then, I knew everything. I knew how life worked. I knew what I would tolerate. I knew what I would never tolerate. I knew what could never happen to me. And I damn sure knew what everybody else should have done differently. Because I had all the answers, like Todd. I was a valiant knight, armor shining, sword in my hand, ready to tell everybody else exactly how to fight battles that I'd never even been in. Then life introduced itself. And that's the part that made that comment so damn funny to me. Because I don't think the guy knows anything about me. He saw a 10-minute video, probably didn't even watch the whole thing, and that's it. And then from that 10 minutes, he decided, dude, you are depressing. Fair enough. Because if you haven't lived some of this stuff, maybe it does sound depressing. Because I've talked about losing things. I've talked about relationships falling apart. I've talked about living in my pickup. I've talked about starting over at 51. I've talked about loneliness. I've talked about mistakes. I've talked about things that I've done that I'm not proud of. And now I've sat in front of a camera and admitted that sometimes I experience things I can't even explain. But here's what younger me probably wouldn't have understood either. I'm not depressed about those things. I'm not talking about them, for no reason. I'm talking about them because I fucking survived them. There's a difference. That's something that I couldn't have understood until life taught it to me. Because it's incredibly easy to be brave about somebody else's life. Think about how many times we've all done it. I'd never put up with that. I'd just leave. I'd tell my boss to kiss my ass. Nobody would ever treat me that way. If I lost everything, I'd just start over. If that happened to me, here's exactly what I would do. Yeah, I said shit like that too, and every bit of it was bullshit. Probably more than most people. I said it a lot. Because in my mind, everything had a solution. And if somebody couldn't see that solution, well, Maybe they just weren't trying hard enough. But that's easy to believe when you're standing outside somebody else's life looking in. But then one day you wake up and you're standing inside of it. That's when all those simple answers and bullshit get complicated real damn fast. I never planned to start over at 51. That wasn't part of my script. I didn't sit down as a younger man and say, you know what? I'm going to build a life, build businesses, have a family, have the house, have all the stuff. Then somewhere around 50, I'll watch the whole damn thing blow apart. Live in my pickup truck for 6 months, spend another year in a cheap ass camper, and start rebuilding my life from scratch. That was a hell of a 5-year plan. No, I thought I knew, where I was going. I thought if I worked hard enough, carried enough responsibility, and did everything I thought I was supposed to do, that, I knew roughly what the other end would look like. But then life happened. And that shiny armor I was wearing, life beat the absolute shit out of it. But here's what I understand now that I didn't understand then. Being humbled and being defeated are not the same thing. Actually, getting humbled may have been one of the best damn things that ever happened to me. Because life beat one sentence completely out of my vocabulary. And that was, that can never happen to me. Oh, yes, it fucking can. No, maybe not what happened to me exactly. Your road might look nothing like mine. But live long enough, and eventually life is probably going to introduce you to something your younger self absolutely certain you understood. Marriage, divorce, money, health, loss, kids, age, failure, loneliness, whatever it is. And suddenly, all of those answers you had from the cheap seats don't work quite as well as when you're standing in the field. That's where human experience comes in. And I've been thinking about this a lot lately. You can read about something, you can Google it, you can ask AI, you can talk to a therapist, and you can listen to somebody who's been through it. And every one of those things can give you little pieces of information. Sometimes some damn good information. But information and lived experience are not the same thing. There are things that I understand today that I could have explained perfectly 20 years ago and still wouldn't have understood them at all because I hadn't lived them yet. That's a hell of a distinction. And it's exactly what happened in that last video. I sat beside a lake and experienced incredible peace and a loneliness feeling at the same time. I couldn't make sense of it. And you know what happened in the comments? Everybody brought their own answer. Some thought it was companionship, some thought it was purpose, some thought it was spiritual, and some had, you know, experienced almost exactly the same contradiction themselves. And the fascinating part was everybody was looking at the same thing through the life that they had lived, including me. Years ago, I would have needed to decide which answer was right. Now I can say something that the younger me would have hated saying. I don't fucking know. And I'm okay with that. That might have been one of the biggest differences between the man I was and the man sitting here right now. The younger version of me thought having an answer made him strong. Now I think knowing when I don't have the answers takes a hell of a lot more strength. Because I don't need to pretend anymore. I don't need to pretend I've figured out marriage. I've been divorced twice. Probably don't buy tickets to that seminar. I don't need to pretend that I figured out money. I've had money. I've lost money. I've made good decisions with it, and some spectacularly stupid ones. And I damn sure don't need to pretend I've figured out life after 50. Hell, look at the name of this channel: Rediscovering Life After 50. Rediscovering, not Ron figured out life and he's here to explain it to you. I'm figuring this shit out while I'm living it. And that's why that comment didn't hurt my feelings. 20 years ago, it might have. I probably would have defended myself. I would have written 3 paragraphs explaining why he misunderstood me. I would have needed him to know that he was wrong about me. Now? Nah, I just pinned that sumbitch. Because I'm comfortable enough with my own life that somebody else's 4-word opinion doesn't change it. And more importantly, I recognize the certainty behind it because I used to have it. I used to look at somebody else's scars and think I knew how they should have avoided them. But then I got some of my own. And I don't say that, well, I don't say that hoping something bad happens to this guy. It's quite the opposite, actually. I hope life is good to him. I hope he's happy. I hope everything works out exactly the way he thinks it will. But if it doesn't, I hope he remembers something. Getting knocked off the horse doesn't mean you're finished. Sometimes that's where the real education starts. Because eventually, I learned the difference between confidence and certainty. Certainty says that'll never happen to me. Confidence says, I don't know what's going to happen to me, but I'll figure something out. I don't have much use for certainty anymore. But confidence, I've got more of that today than I've ever had, when I thought I knew everything. Because now my confidence isn't based on believing nothing bad will happen. It's based on knowing that bad things have happened. And I'm still here, 10 toes up. But that's not depressing to me. That's peace. Not believing nothing can go wrong, knowing damn well that it can, and living anyway. I'm 55 years old. I'm still trying new things. I'm still going places I didn't plan to go. I'm still making mistakes. I'm still learning. I'm still discovering things about myself that surprise the hell out of even me. And I'm finally comfortable saying, I don't know what comes next. But the younger version of me probably looked at that man and thought he'd lost something. He did. He lost the illusion that he knew everything. And thank God for that. Because somewhere between that valiant knight getting knocked off of his horse, losing his sword, and getting the absolute shit beat out of that shiny armor, I finally became teachable. So when I saw, dude, you are depressing, I couldn't get mad. I recognized him for the idiot he is, and the lessons that yet await him, because I used to be him. If you ever catch yourself looking at somebody else's life thinking that you know exactly what they should have done, be careful. You might be right, but you also might be judging a battle, that you just haven't had to fight yet. And life has a funny way of introducing us to ourselves. Y'all, I'll see you in the next one.